Hey guys, so I've just made this video to show people how to use classes and why they would be useful. I've just felt that when I was learning this particular topic that there was just a lot of confusion and the way it was taught wasn't particularly good. And when I eventually had learnt the topic, I just felt that so much time was wasted on trying to understand these bad explanations. So I've just come here to make a quick video. Hopefully it's not too long and hopefully you guys don't have to go through what I went through. So what are the problems with the usual explanations? So you've probably heard in class or in videos about thinking of classes such as a blueprint, and if you've actually come anywhere near a blueprint, you would probably be quick to realize that it's a bit of an odd example to use. I feel like there's much better examples to use. Another hurdle that comes in the way of understanding classes properly is the unhelpful jargon. So many years ago, I guess someone would have made classes for the first time and they came up with these words, and unfortunately it's become commonplace, so we're just going to have to get used to them. But the main thing I'm trying to get across is it's best not to think about the real world meaning of these words too much, and just think of them as random words. So what are classes? So what I want you to do is think of them as an umbrella term where you're defining what makes the differences. So for example, let's think of an umbrella term here such as soccer players. So there are many soccer players in the world, but what is the first way you sort of tell them apart? Well, the first way would be a name, and that's perfect. So when I mentioned here where you define what makes the differences, one way we could define the differences and differentiate players is their name. Another way could be the position they play on a soccer field. So whether they're a goalkeeper, a defender, a midfielder, or a striker, that is another way we can sort of tell them apart. And another example is phones. So you and your friends all probably have phones, but it is not the exact same phone. A phone is just being used as an umbrella term, and we can use a phone as a class. So there are different types of phones. There are Samsungs, there are iPhones, there are Huawei phones, and you could break down these even further. What type of iPhone do you have? Do you have an iPhone 11? Do you have an iPhone 13? Do you have a Sony Android or a Samsung Android? So this is the way I want you to think of classes, thinking of it as an overarching umbrella term where things sit inside it. So objects, you've probably come across the word objects before, and I want you to think of objects as a class sort of coming to life where you give it attributes that make it different, that makes it different to other objects. So each object has its own unique set of data. So an object can come from the same class, but it will have little differences in its instances that makes it unique. So finally, why do we need classes? Why do we need object-oriented programming? Well, the main reason is it minimizes repeatability of code. So for example, let's say you were creating a video game and you wanted to make bad guys, and you had a level where the player would verse 50 bad guys. So instead of creating 50 separate Java files, we might only need 1 or 2, because we could just define what makes a bad guy and we could just repeat that code, so we wouldn't need to make all these separate files for each separate bad guy. Okay, so that's enough talking. So I'm going to get straight to the so we're going to be making a soccer player class. So we're just going to get straight into it, and once again, as I mentioned in the previous example, we have to start defining how we would differentiate soccer players. So the first one would be the name. So we have access to primitive and reference data types, and so the best way to define a name would be through a string. So we'll do public string name. Another thing I mentioned was another way to tell apart soccer players would be the position they play. So we'll use a string again. So public string position. Now, just to make it a little interesting, I'll add something else. So soccer players, some of them, like Ronaldo, are worth millions of dollars. Some players are not. So we'll just add another attribute, an int attribute, and we'll call it player fee. So how much the player costs if you wanted to buy one. So we've defined the attributes. You can define as much as you want. It doesn't really matter how many you do. I guess the more you have, the more unique the objects can be when you create them. So our next step is to create a constructor. So a constructor is just a regular method, but the purpose of it is to actually bring the class to life. As I previously mentioned, we need it to create objects of the class. So the way we do it is we do public, and then we do the name of the class. So public soccer player, and the parentheses here, think of it as a parameter in a regular method. So these are the things you want to be defining each time you create a soccer player. So for example, we want to be putting in the name, so we'll do string name. Every time we create a player, we want to be mentioning the position, so string position. And every time we create a player, we also want to be mentioning the how much they cost, so we'll do int player fee. Okay, so now this next point is probably going to be the part where you have to think a bit, but I promise if you can understand this, you're going to have classes in the bag. So we're going to use a keyword called this, and you've probably heard of it and the explanations aren't that great. I'm going to try my best to explain what this means. So we'll pick the first attribute here, this dot name equals name. So what does this mean? It means whenever we create an object, the name of the object will be the variable, this variable that's passed in. So if we pass in Ronaldo, the name of the object will be Ronaldo. If the name of the object is, if the name here, if we're passing in string called Torres, the name of the object will be called Torres. Okay, this is very important, because if we did not have this keyword here, it will cause errors when we're creating objects. So we do this dot position equals position, and one last one, this dot player fee equals player fee. Okay, that's all done. So honestly, when I was learning classes, this was the most confusing thing, because I didn't really understand why we needed this. I thought we could just do name equals name, but the problem is if you just do name equals name, then all instances of the soccer player class will have the same name. So you really need this keyword. Think of it as a way of sort of unlocking an ability to tell objects apart. Okay, so that's all done. So now we're just gonna use a main method, public static void main, and what we can do now is we can instantiate a class. So what this means is create an object of the soccer player class. So this is, like I mentioned previously, this is where we can bring the soccer player class to life. So let's think of someone popular. I want to create Cristiano Ronaldo, and I am limited to these 3 ways. So I need to use these 3 attributes to tell apart Cristiano Ronaldo from other objects I'm going to make. So the first thing we do is mention the type of the object. So it will be soccer player, then we'll just call it Ron for now, equals new soccer player. Yes, so in Java you have to mention it twice. So now basically we think of this as a function call or a method call. This is going to be calling this constructor here. So this wants 3 arguments. Right now we've got nothing. So the first one it wants is the name. So we're going to do Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, that's 1 out of 3 done. Next one is the position. So I guess I'll just put in forward. And next one is int player fee. So now it wants an integer, otherwise it won't work. So I can't write million. I have to write an actual integer number. So we'll just put 100 for now. And that's it. That's done. You have created your own soccer player named Cristiano Ronaldo. So let's create some more so you get the hang of it. So soccer player, we'll do Torres equals new soccer player. So same thing, the first thing the constructor wants is a name. So we'll do name. Oops. Okay, we'll do Fernando Torres. Okay. And what position does he play? Well, he played forward as well. And last one, player fee, we'll put in 50. And we'll just do one more. Soccer player. Let me think. Mbappe equals new soccer player. And we'll give it a name. Kylian Mbappe. He also plays forward, so I'll do forward. And I think he costs a lot of money these days, so I'll put in 200. And that's pretty much it. So if you ever hear the words instantiate a class or create an object of a class, this is basically what we've done here. So we've instantiated the soccer player class and we've created an object of the soccer player class. These 2 things mean exactly the same thing. They're just 2 ways to say it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and the best way to learn a skill is to do it yourself. So play around with constructors and attributes and create some classes of your own, and you'll get this in no time.